Welcome to the Spectrum Lounge podcast, where we discuss creatives of color disrupting the game in TV, film, and pop culture. I am your host, Rebecca Theodore-Vachon, and on this episode, we speak with director Gina Prince-Bythewood about her latest project, the hit Netflix original film, The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron and Kiki Layne. Take a listen. Welcome to the Spectrum Lounge, Gina.
Good to finally be here.
So congratulations on The Old Guard. I think I was looking because, Netflix has their top 10 movies. I think you guys were like in number one for like almost 2 weeks, and you guys are still in the top 10. What has it been like to kind of see like the reactions and the success of The Old Guard?
I mean, it's been surreal. I'm not gonna lie. When they, we had a call after that first weekend where they let you know how you're doing, and actually, you know what? They were hitting me up all weekend actually, and I mean, it was pretty stunning. And given seriously my whole career, every movie I've made, I've been told, yeah, you don't get foreign distribution because our films don't travel, our characters don't travel, and how disheartening that is because, you want your work to be seen by everyone. And um, so now to have this film drop in 190 countries
Wow.
and, for that whole first weekend and week, we were the number one film basically in the world. Like that,
Mhm.
I can't, you can't wrap your head around that, but it's amazing, and most amazing because of just these characters that we put into the world and these heroes. I've said often, but it's true, everybody deserves to see themselves as a hero, and that's one of the things I love so much about this film, and what Greg Rucka, who wrote the graphic novel and wrote the script. Like it was all baked in, and really drew me to the material. So, the fact that these unique heroes are out into the world is really special to me.
Right. There's when I think about the Old Guard and the opening scene, there's no spoilers here. We know that the characters are immortal, but there's an opening line from Theron's character where she says, "I've been here before. The same question over and over again. Is this it? Will this time be the one?" And I'm just so tired of it. And I was watching this again, so I watched it for the third time. And when I thought about what she said, I was like, you could easily apply that to kind of like your career. Like you've been here 20 years as a Black woman director, and they've tried to, but you keep coming back. I mean, did you feel like any connection to the theme of immortality, of this idea of like dying and coming back to life over again as a Black woman director in Hollywood?
Honestly, the theme the two themes that connected me the most to this was about finding your purpose. That was a really big connective for me, and then also, this thing of we have a finite amount of time on this earth. So what are you going to do with your time? And the hope is that you do something good. Um, so like that's what I feel, that my career's been in being able to know so early in my life that I knew I was a storyteller. And I'm so fortunate that I had that epiphany so early on, because then everything I did from that moment on was giving myself the opportunity to do that. Um, but also knowing my purpose, and at a time in my life losing my sense of purpose of why I was here. But then again, reconnecting, and it really is that sense of purpose that drives me, that keeps me in the fight. That of course I get tired, but the difference between me and Andy is um, the fatigue is more of the stuff I have to deal with, but I'm never fatigued in the fight.
Right. So we know you've made history as the first Black woman director to helm a comic book adaptation of this size on screen. How did you kind of keep the weight of that from interfering in your work? Where it's like, okay, let me not have this burden and just kind of do the work. How were you able to do that?
Yeah, it is there every day. Every day it's there when you're on a project like this. It's really big, and there's so much money involved. There's so many people involved, and it's your job as a director to keep it going, to keep everyone inspired, to keep everyone on the same page and realizing my vision. And it's a lot. And then on top of that, it's my internal fear of failure, but it's even greater when you're one of the few that get the opportunity, because you want to keep that door open for those coming behind you. And that is a real thing. And um, it really was just amazing advice from Ryan Johnson, who, and I had asked him the same question when he
Mm.
was on Star Wars, and because how do you not get just sunk by
Right.
the bigness of it? And he said it does not matter how much money you have to focus on the story first and telling a good story. And I literally reminded myself of that every single day, because when you focus on that, on something that, yeah, I know how to do that,
Mhm.
then all the other stuff is just, you start thinking of it as, oh, I got more money. It just means more toys, more time, and the ability to really expand your imagination and kind of whatever you envision you can do. And so then it that part of it, it makes it fun.
Right. Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Rian Johnson, because I remember years back when Beyond the Lights came out, he was such a huge advocate of that movie. I'm a huge fan of Rian Johnson, and just to see him, talk so lovingly about the Beyond the Lights, it just made me so happy. And there's this rarity in Hollywood where you don't it's very rare to see like a white male director champion black women
Mhm.
directors like that. Like, how important has his friendship and his professional advice been to you since the two of you have met?
Okay, it was really a beautiful thing. That's how we met, because he shouted "Beyond the Lights" out on Twitter, and I reached out to him, and then we just formed this really cool friendship. And so often we see and hear these stories of, essentially, white men helping each other in this industry. Oh, I saw their short film, or oh, I saw their first film, and then I recommended them to Spielberg, and now he's doing, Jurassic Park. You see
Mm-hmm.
it all the time. We don't see it for us because so few of us are in that world. So for Ryan to just recognize the work, um, and champion the work, it meant a lot. Absolutely meant a lot. And the way that he has always been there as a resource where I could call him at any time to ask questions, but also in the industry of him being a champion in terms of, in talking to the gatekeepers. It's been really good. And another one, Patty Jenkins, super super helpful to me
Mm,
when I got this, and we sat down a couple times before I started shooting just to get that advice, the technical, the craft of it, but also the personal thing of being a woman in this, environment, and navigating that as well. And in doing a film like this, it's 63 days of shooting. I was overseas 9.5 months. Like, it's a
wow.
lot. So, and it's much different than doing Beyond the Lights, 33 days,
Mm-hmm.
so what is the difference, and how do you survive that? And so just really great advice, and really good, again, to be able to call someone and then be so open to share their experience with you to make yours a little less difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. Now I know you said in interviews that you're a huge fan of action movies. Like, which were there specific movies that you watched in order to prepare for filming Old Guard, and were there any? I think I saw a couple, but I wanted to ask you: are there any homages in the Old Guard to any specific movie scenes or action films that you've loved?
Um, I mean, a lot. It's
Mhm.
whatever film I do, whatever genre it is, I go into a deep dive,
Yes.
and absolutely watch everything. When I did Beyond the Lights, probably watched every single music film, Love and Basketball, watched every, sports film that was out there. And, for this, it was the same thing. Let me watch a ton of action films because you see what you like and you see what you don't like. But also, it's great to see people who have done it on this level, taken what you can learn from it, and then as a director, then it's about how do you bring your aesthetic to it. But certainly the bar for me was the bathroom fight in MI6. That is
Oh.
just a perfect fight scene, a
Hmm.
perfect fight scene. And so, that was on a loop when I talked to my incredible stunt team, and talking to Terry Shropshire, my editor, and Tammy Riker and DP, and like that was our bar. But Zero Dark 30 was a big template for me, in terms of wanting to bring the realism of both Nile as a Marine, but also the old guard as real world mercenaries. Man on Fire was an emotional action template for me. Just the depth of relationship and family and love within that story, despite the heightened environment I wanted to bring to this. The Raid, 100%. Watched
Oh,
that movie a couple
yeah.
times, and just the action is so smart and creative and visceral, and never felt like a celebration of violence. And that was a big thing and a big part of my pitch for this film, that I would be unapologetic about the violence, but it would never feel like a celebration of violence.
Yeah.
There's a movie, Ong Bak 2, that I watched that was really helpful. And then Hero, the Grandmaster, another couple films that I watched. And again, it may not be everything about that film that, or maybe totally different style, but there's always something that you can pick up from watching those that have done it before.
Right. So tell me about, like, because I know for a lot of people that I talk to who love the old guard, they love the fight choreography. Tell
Mhm.
me about putting that crew together, as far as like the stunt coordinators and the actors, how long they had to train before shooting.
Mhm. It starts with the vision and what kind of action you want. And for me, this film, I wanted it to feel grounded and real. And so that had to permeate everything, and absolutely the action. I wanted the fights to feel grounded and real, even despite the fact that there is this fantastical conceit of immortality. But also, there are times that they're fighting with archaic weapons. And how can we make that feel believable against modern weaponry? So, those were, you know, really the great conversations that I had with my incredible stunt team, Jeff Haberstad, Danny Hernandez, who designed the fights, and Bryson Counts. An incredible team. So smart and creative and passionate. Also super important, super respectful. Because I did absolutely hear horror stories um, about, you know, the second unit and stunt teams trying to, kind of go rogue or not listen. And these guys were the absolute opposite. And I do feel like I have an advantage in that I've been an athlete my whole life.
Mm.
I kickboxed for 2 years. I know what good fighting looks like. I know what it feels like. So I was able to talk to them on that level really early on, which made them understand, oh, she knows what she's talking about. And two, my vision was so specific about what I wanted that they were able to really hone in on that. And so it starts with the story. What is the story of each fight? And I wanted each set piece to have a different feel, and you do that by giving each one a different story. And how is it driving the characters? What is it revealing about characters? So, a great example is the plane fight,
Yes.
where it's these two characters in a confined space. Nile is really pissed off. She's completely freaked out. She was just shot in the head. She doesn't like this woman. She's been kidnapped. She wants to get free.
Right.
Um, and Andy has this new immortal, doesn't want her, but she's here in the world. So let me test her. Let me see what she's about. What does she have? What is she going to add to the team? So, in having that dynamic, and then what are their fighting styles? Because you want a difference, because that makes fights more interesting. And for Nile, she's a Marine, so she learned a specific type of martial arts that they teach you in Marines. Andy knows every single fighting style known to man, because she's seen everything. So to be able to put those two things up against each other was really fun. And then designing so that you see the frustration of Nile build and build and build, because she can't even land a shot, you know, on this woman. And but finally, she just throws out her military training and just starts, just throwing haymakers, just trying to land, and she gets that shot in, and it surprises Andy, but it gives Nile her swagger back for a moment, and Nile thinks that she's got her, but then Andy switches, and when she grabs her face, that was just such a big moment for me in the fight, because I love the disrespect of it, you know, uh, and but the thing is, Niall keeps coming. It says
Right.
so much about her character. She's getting rocked. She keeps coming because her arm broke, keeps coming. And it says so much to the audience about who she is, but also to Andy. So that it's fun to tell the story. And that helped Kiki as well, given this was her first action scene she'd ever shot. And this was the first scene in the film that we shot, the plane fight. Um,
Right.
that can be overwhelming and scary, despite the fact that, you know, they trained for months, and Kiki trained, she had 2-a-days, 5 days a week for a couple months. And it incorporated everything, not just the fight choreography, but she had never done this before. So she had to start with boxing training, because there's two tells for women in
Mhm.
action, or any type of athletic thing. You got to throw a punch, and you got to be able to run. Those two things will kill a scene in a heartbeat if they can't do those things. So had Kiki with a boxing trainer to get her punches right. I put her with a running coach to make sure that she could look good running. She did weight training to build up her body and strength and stamina for the level of training she had to do, but also to build up a body of a Marine. And then you're doing the choreography, and she was also doing weapons training, and she was doing tactical training, so she would just know how to move. It's not enough that you go to a shooting range. You gotta, how do you reload a weapon and look like you've been doing it for years? How do you pick up a weapon? How do you hold a weapon? How do you pull a weapon? Like, all these things had to become second nature, so that when we're shooting in the moment, she's not thinking about it. She's just being Nile. And again, that took months, but she put in the time, she put in the effort, and thank God, that's what you want, an actor that is willing to do everything it takes to embody a character, and she certainly did, and brought it to that plane fight. And I feel absolutely, you believe her. It can't just be about choreography. An audience has to believe the intention behind a punch and a kick. And when
Mhm.
she when she swings on her, I believe it.
Right. Wait, I was so happy to see Kiki in this movie because I mean I'm an action film junkie,
Mm,
and for me it's always been frustrating where it's like, at least when you look at the history of Hollywood, like you could count the number of black women in like badass kick, in action roles. I think the last one I saw was like Halle Berry in John Wick 3. Like she just blew me away. Like she
mhm,
was so fantastic, and I was like, well, why can't we get more of this? But I know that with Kiki, I know that you came across her through Barry Jenkins.
mhm,
Can you tell us a little bit about just that
mhm,
casting and how Barry brought her to you?
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on something you said, and it's an absolute frustration why we are not in more action films.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, well, foremost, as I said, everyone deserves to see themselves as a hero. Like, the what it would do for us and for the world to see ourselves as heroes more, in the same way that, little white boys get to grow up and see themselves heroic in 1,000 different ways.
Right.
that absolutely influences who you think you can be, and who you are. And we need that. We need that, and the world needs to see us like that. And we are dope. And there are so many dope
Hmm.
actors out there who deserve, the shot. And we've always only had one. We've had Hallie, as Storm, and then, as you said, just in John Wick. Thank God, gosh, for Black Panther, who gave us a few more. And I hate that I'm probably missing one or two more, but the fact that we can literally count them all on maybe one hand, that maybe we
Hmm.
have to add a couple fingers. But yeah, Kiki. When I was casting for Nile, I did see a lot of really great actresses, um, but I didn't find Nile yet, and it's a guttural thing for me with casting. I just know. Um, and so I was starting to get a little nervous because
Hmm.
I hadn't found her yet. And Barry invited me to an early cut of Beale Street. And I remember sitting in the theater watching and so excited because I was like, who is that? Like, it's always exciting to see a new one. And she was really, really good. But I said to myself, damn, she's so good, but she could never be now because she's just so soft, like Tish, so soft. Um, but she came into audition, and literally 5 seconds, I was like, oh my God.
Mm.
And then I just kept getting more and more excited. Her audition scene was the scene where she gets shot in the head. And she played the realness of it. She didn't play the fantastical part of it, played the realness. I got shot in the head and I came back to life. Like, it was just a visceral thing, and I believed her, and her chops were next level, which was really exemplified by the fact that, again, the last time I saw her was as Tish, and now she's just rocking this totally different vibe. She'd had that innate strength where I believed her as a Marine, believed her as this warrior, but also that beautiful vulnerability that she has that makes us, as an audience, care about her. And so that those two or those three things, just, I was so hyped. And she finished, and then I knew I still had to share her audition with Skydance and with Greg Rucka, but I knew that it was Nile, and that was just screaming in my head as I sat down and had a conversation with her after, and talked to her about, look, you haven't done action before, and it is really, really hard. The amount of work you are going to have to put in. But she said, I will do absolutely anything to embody this character in the right way and honor Nile and honor female Marines. And I believed her, and she stepped up. But my first call after showing her to Skydance, and they got it right away, and Greg Rucka got it right away. I called Barry, because one of my other things is I want to make sure that you've got that work ethic, that you're a good person. It's just I need that. And called him up, and he's like, yeah, she's a real deal, and she will bust her ass and kill herself to be great.
Mm.
And she's a cool she's a cool person. So that's what I needed to hear. And again, I love that we can do that. We can call each other up and share information, and really help elevate, um, different people within our business, that deserve to be elevated.
Right. And I did want to ask you because that was one of the things that I loved about the old guard was the relationship with Joe and Nikki. Because we've had like like on Marvel and DC. I mean, not to diss them or anything, but like there's this representation of like, oh, this character is queer, and there's something called queer baiting, right? Where it's like they usually say something after the fact, like, oh yeah, by the way, they're a lesbian, or but you never really see it on scene. It's just on
Right.
screen. You're just like, really, they were queer, okay. But I really loved in the old guard that you really committed to Joe and Nikki. Maren Kanzari and Luca Marinelli. They're just making me swoon. It was just really beautiful to see these two men loving each other and just so open with it. Like that scene in the truck where he was just, that was just like, that has to be my wedding vow. And all of us were just like, it was just so beautiful. Can you tell us about, just really working on committing to keeping that
Mhm.
queer representation in the old guard?
Yeah, it was in the script, and I love the script so much, and I love that it kept surprising me, and I love that I kept seeing things that we hadn't seen before in the genre. And Nikki and Joe were certainly characters that I hadn't seen, and they were just dope characters, and I was excited about it. And it's interesting, props to Greg Rucka when he went out with this, and there were a number of suitors that wanted it. He made Skydance promise that they would not cut that scene in the armored car.
Oh, wow.
And they said yes. And when I heard that, I was like, you don't have to worry. Like this is one of the reasons I'm here. I want to film that speech. So when it came time to cast, I wanted to approach it in the same way that I do any love story, and I need to know that the actors have a crackle, and if they have that crackle, and you can't fake it. It's either there or it's not. But if the crackle is there, then through rehearsal and all that, then I can build it into a fire. And so it started with Marwan. I knew I wanted Marwan as Joe. I had seen this independent film called Wolf that he did, where he played a kickboxer, and it was a really great performance. And um, he and I had a conversation. He was supposed to read for the role. He and I spoke and via FaceTime. I think he was in Thailand shooting a film, so it was really late for him and really early for me. But it was the best, not the but one of the best phone calls I've ever had with an actor ever. He
Mhm.
was so passionate about the character, so passionate about the story, so passionate about that speech and what it meant, and how he saw these two characters that after this amount of time, after 1,000 years, that it it's past love and it's just soul. Um, and he just got it. And at the end of the phone call, I said, "You don't need to read. Like you're Joe." Um, so now I had to find Nikki, and we had auditions, and I saw this tape of Luca, and I was just so enamored immediately because of his eyes. Like his eyes are so soulful, and he just has a depth to him and an innate warmth. And so I had him fly in for a chemistry read with Marwan, and I had Greg write just a short scene that I wanted for a jump off point, and then I would let them just go. And can there, there's just been some really great moments in my career in terms of casting, and that was one of them. It was absolute magic in the room. These two men had never met, and they clicked immediately and so organically fed off each other. And when it just moved into improv, they just knew these characters and knew the relationship, and I believed them. And it was really beautiful. And they both felt it, which was amazing. Luca left, and Marwan, he just looked at me. He said, "I won't have to work to make this work." And that was such a cool thing to say. And so it was just undeniable that it was these two. So um, it was really great. And I'll just tell you one funny thing is this is how connected they were.
Yeah.
um, so I wanted, initially my thought for the look of Joe was a shorter cut.
Hmm.
Um, and so he was literally sitting in the chair, and then Luca comes running in to the hair and makeup with the graphic novel in his hand, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Listen, this is Joe. The curls, the hair. This is Joe." And he started telling how important the hair was to Joe's character and to the relationship. And I was I was like, wow. um, I wasn't 100%, but he was so passionate about it, and Marwan was hearing him, and Marwan, believed him, and so I said, you know what, Marwan, how do you feel? And he said, you know what, let's keep it, and thank God, it was
Yeah.
the absolute right thing. I love his hair in the film. I love his look, and that was Luca. Luca did that.
That's great. Yeah, and the thing that I loved about them too is that now I'll admit, when I was watching the movie, I kind of had like my heart in my throat because when you have these movies with queer couples in love, there's something called fridging, right? Where usually they'll kill off.
Bridging?
Yeah, it's called fridging. Yeah, it started off in comic books where basically you kill off usually a minority character, either a person of color or a queer person, to sort of like advance the storyline of usually a white person or a hetero person. Um,
Oh,
and so I was kind of afraid. I was like, oh my God, they're so beautiful. Please don't kill them. Like I was so afraid, but I was like, no, this is Gina. Gina's not going to do us dirty like that. She would not do a movie like that. So it was just really beautiful to see that they made it to the end. Like their love was intact, they were intact, and I just thought that was so great.
wow!
Yeah,
I didn't know that, but that's deep to hear. And
yeah.
yeah, there was no way I was going to do that, nor was Greg. And it's funny also because in terms of Niall's character, I did say to myself, there's going to be some people who watch this, and when Niall gets her throat cut, they're going to be like, "Oh, damn! Why you killing the black character so early?" But I was hoping that people would trust me that I wouldn't go out like that.
Right, right. Like with Nell's character, I did have a conversation with someone, and they said that just like the image of Nile dying, like her broken body and then coming back to life. Like I know, like in the time right now, we're in these
Mhm.
very charged political times, particularly with Black women, and this idea that Black women don't feel pain, or that they don't,
Mhm.
sort of like they're mules. You know what I mean? Like they're just workhorses, and they fight for the cause, and it's sort of like the strong Black woman trope. And
Mhm.
but I do. I mean, I can talk to you about that. But I did feel that when I watched Old Guard, I did feel like there was a consciousness that with Nile. Every time she came back, there were consequences to that. It wasn't like she just jumped up and was like, "Oh, okay,
Mhm.
I'm fine." But I wanted to talk to you. Was there like a certain sensitivity in how you wanted to portray those scenes with Nile, with her being
Mhm.
injured or being hurt?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that everything you said is absolutely true. It's so interesting because for so long that's been the compliment that we can handle anything and everything, and honestly, it feels like we have, but people only see that and they don't see the pain and the cost of that, and the reality that Black women really are the most unprotected, uh, and so you have to be conscious of that in your work. And that was something that was really important for Kiki and I, that in creating this quote unquote badass character, we never wanted to lose a vulnerability, because for me, that is what badass is. It is having courage and strength, but it's also having vulnerability and empathy. And so we wanted to make sure that Niall had all of that. We wanted to make sure, and what I found most notable about the conceit of this film is, despite the immortality, they feel pain, and
Mm,
not just physical pain, but emotional pain, and also that there is a toll on their existence, on the fact that they have to kill. They kill one to save many, but that's not easy. And I wanted them to feel that, and really express that, which I felt is not often expressed in films like this. People usually kill and then keep it moving. But
mhm.
there is a cost to that in real life, and I wanted all that into these characters.
Great. So, just final question. I mean, well, now with Olgar, can we finally just like kill this argument that women cannot direct action movies? I'm like, you know what I mean? Because I mean, now we just found out last week that you signed on to direct The Woman King with Viola
Mhm.
Davis, and I'm so excited. I was just like, because I think they had announced the movie 2 years ago,
Yeah.
because it's with Viola and Lupita, I believe. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, do you going forward, I mean, do you feel more confident after this experience at Olgard, do you feel more confident taking on this project or any other future projects that may be action oriented?
Oh, 100%. It's like I always felt that I could do it and would be able to do it. I mean, even with Love and Basketball, I mean, is it, big shoot 'em up? No, but the basketball like that is action. How do you believably tell a story through physicality,
Mm-hmm.
and make it feel real and authentic? And, and it honestly, it's the same as a love scene. How do you make a love scene feel real and authentic and have a story to it? And so, really bringing that mentality to action, and again, understanding also it's putting a great team around you, who can help you realize your vision, and all those things that I learned in addition to having a true passion for it. Um, yeah, it gave me absolute confidence, and I really feel like everything I've done, including the old guard, has now put me in a space where I can do the Woman King, and do it the right way, and you know give us our brave heart, and do a film, on that level. So, um, but yeah, there's an absolute beautiful feeling now that I'm on this other side of it, that I did it, and I also proved to others, one, that I could do it, but women can do it, and Black women can do it, and I'm excited. Victoria Mahoney, second unit on Star Wars. I mean, come on, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that she's going to be one of the next that's, in this action space, and there's others that have the desire, and so the key is that people are able to match that desire with opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me, Gina. Thank you so
Of
much.
course.
And
Yeah,
congratulations on
that
the
was
old guards.
fun.
Can we expect an old guard too? Are there any? I know it's kind of quick, but we're already waiting for a sequel. We're like, we want to know more.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course incredibly flattering, because it means that we did our job.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Greg always envisioned this as a trilogy. It's his story, it's his characters. He knows where it goes. He's told me, and it's pretty great. So, if there's enough desire, by the audience, which there certainly seems to be, I'm excited for Greg to get cracking on the next script.
Great. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Spectrum Lounge, and we'll see you on the other side.